Good evening and welcome to the special inaugural meeting of the 2022-2026 term of the Durham District School Board meeting. I am Director of Education Nora Marsh, and this evening I will be the presiding officer until the point in the agenda where we elect the chair for the incoming year. I would like to begin this meeting with our land acknowledgement. The Durham District School Board acknowledges that many Indigenous nations have long-standing relationships, both historic and modern, with the territories upon which our school board and schools are located. Today, this area is home to many Indigenous peoples from across Turtle Island. We acknowledge that the Durham region forms a part of the traditional and treaty territory of the Mississaugas of Scugog Island First Nation, the Mississauga peoples, and the treaty territory of the Chippewas of Georgina Island First Nation. It is on these ancestral and treaty lands that we teach, learn, and live. Before we begin this evening's agenda, I would very much like to extend a warm appreciation to the students from Sinclair Secondary School and their teacher, John McKillen, who provided wonderful reception for us prior to this evening's meeting. Thank you so much for your fine efforts. It was very enjoyable. A pleasure to have you back in our lobby doing what you do so well. Thank you again. I would also like to welcome the Glendew Public School Junior Intermediate Choir, along with their principal, Keith Wainwright, and teachers Emily Parliament and Melissa Arkell, who co-lead the choir. They will lead us in the opening of O Canada for this inaugural meeting. And just while the students and the choir are making their way in, I'll note that many of the choir members are active learners both in the classroom as well as in extracurricular groups. These students participate in a variety of musical ensembles that range from hand drumming to ukulele ensembles, wind ensembles, recorder, and many more other choirs. It's our pleasure to again welcome these students from Glendew Public School under the lead of their teachers and choir leads, Emily Parliament and Melissa Arkell. And for those who are able and wish to, you may stand during the Song of O Canada, and then we will introduce the next song that the choir will do. Thank you. you please feel free to be seated again. And I believe we have a second song, the pleasure of a second song, being performed this evening, and it is Who Can Sail, and it's going to feature 3 grade 8 students, Maddie, Charlotte, and Emma, on hand with the chimes, and I look forward to hearing the choir again. Thank you. I know that I speak for everyone here when I express the joy that you bring to our hearts in terms of the songs and having you in this part of our board meeting. So thank you so much for being here, and want to again thank Emily and Melissa for their dedicated encouragement and instruction of music in our schools. Of course, to Principal Keith too. I saw him busily videotaping your choir. His pride as principal is evident. But most especially, we want to thank the students here tonight. Having your presence makes this evening all the more special for everyone. You're a reminder that our reason for being is the students of the Durham District School Board, and that all we do around this table and elsewhere is in service of you, your well-being, and your learning. So I'm going to ask for, I'm going to call a short recess just to provide an opportunity for the students to make their way out of the boardroom, but want to express once again our sincere thanks for making tonight such a memorable one by your presence and your talent. Thank you. And with that stewardship comes the importance of modeling integrity and ethics for the students that we collectively serve. It is now my great pleasure on behalf of the senior team to officially welcome in these new trustees by name. And they will join me individually at the table. They'll recite and sign their dedication, which will then begin their official term as trustee. And so it is my sincere pleasure to first welcome Michelle Arsenault.
Okay. I, Michelle Arsenault, do solemnly declare that I am not disqualified under any act from being a member of the Durham District School Board. I will truly, faithfully, impartially, and to the best of my ability execute the office of board member, and that I have not received or will not receive any payment or reward or promise therefor for the exercise of any partial or malversation or other undue recruitment of the said office, and that I will disclose any pecuniary interests, direct, indirect, as required by and in accordance with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. I declare before me that I, at the town of Whitby, in the province of Ontario, this 15th day of November 2022.
Thank you, Michelle. And so I'll now call you Trustee Arsenault. And if you could please just sign there, and I will also witness that signature. Congratulations again. Next, it's my pleasure to call on Tracy Brown. Welcome.
I, Cassandra Tracy Brown, do solemnly declare that I am not disqualified under any act from being a member of Durham District School Board. I will truly, faithfully, impartially, and to the best of my ability, execute the office of board member, and that I have not received and will not receive any payment or reward or promise thereof for the exercise of any partiality or malversation or other undue execution of the said office, and that I will disclose any, I think it's pecuniary interest, direct or indirect, as required by and in accordance with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act.
Thank you. So if you don't mind signing on the right, I will sign on the left, and then it'll be my pleasure to ask you, Trustee Brown, to take your seat. Next, it's my pleasure to invite Emma Cunningham.
I, Emma Cunningham, do solemnly declare that I am not disqualified under any act from being a member of the Durham District School Board. I will truly, faithfully, impartially, and to the best of my ability execute the office of board member, and that I have not received and will not receive any payment or reward or promise thereof for the exercise of any partiality or malversion or other undue execution of the said office, and that I will disclose any pecuniary interest, direct or indirect, as required by and in accordance with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act.
Thank you. So if you don't mind just signing on the right. Thank you. That's a quick signature. So welcome, Trustee Cunningham. Please take your seat. Thank you. Next, it's my pleasure to ask Donna Edwards to come down.
I, Donna Edwards, do solemnly declare that I am not disqualified under any act from being a member of Durham District School Board. I will truly, faithfully, impartially, and to the best of my ability execute the office of the board member, and that I have not received and will not receive any payment or reward or promise thereof for the exercise of any partiality or malversation or other undue execution of the said office, and that I will disclose any pecuniary interest, direct or indirect, as required by and in accordance with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act, declared before me at the town of Whitby in the province of Ontario this 15th day of November 2022.
Thank you. So if you don't mind signing on the right. It's now my pleasure, Trustee Edwards, to invite you to take your seat. Thank you. Would Stephen Linton please join me?
I, Stephen Linton, do solemnly declare I am not disqualified under any act from being a member of Durham District School Board. I will truly, faithfully, impartially, and to the best of my ability execute the office of board member, and that I have not received and will not receive any payment or reward or promise thereof for the exercise of any partiality or malversation or any undue execution of the said office, and that I will disclose any pecuniary interest, direct, indirect, as required by and in accordance with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act.
Thank you, sir. So if you could sign on the right, I will join you with a signature on the left. It is now my pleasure to welcome you, Trustee Linton, and you may take a seat around the board table. Thank you. Next, I invite Kelly Miller to join me, please.
I, Kelly Miller, do solemnly declare that I am not disqualified under any act from being a member of Durham District School Board. I will truly, faithfully, impartially, and to the best of my ability execute the office of board member, and that I have not received and will not receive any payment or reward or promise thereof for the exercise of any partiality or malversation or other undue execution of the said office, and that I will disclose any pecuniary interest, direct or indirect, as required by and in accordance with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act.
Thank you. So if you don't mind just signing at the bottom there. And it's my pleasure to invite you to take a seat, Trustee Miller. Thank you. Next, I would invite Carolyn Morton to join me, please.
I, Carolyn Morton, do solemnly declare that I am not disqualified under any act from being a member of the Durham District School Board. I will truly, faithfully, impartially, and to the best of my ability execute the office of board member, and that I have not received and will not receive any payment or reward or promise thereof for the exercise of any partiality or malversation or other undue execution of the said office, and that I will disclose any pecuniary interest, direct or indirect, as required by and in accordance with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act.
Thank you. If you could please just sign on the right-hand side.
On the dotted line.
On the dotted line, 4 years. Thank you so much, and it's a pleasure to welcome you to your seat, Trustee Morton. Next, could I please be joined by Deb Oldfield?
I, Deborah Oldfield, do solemnly declare I am not disqualified under any act from being a member of Durham District School Board. I will truly, faithfully, impartially, and to the best of my ability execute the office of board member, and that I have not received and will not receive any payment or reward or promise thereof for the exercise of any partiality or malversation or any undue execution of the said office, and that I will disclose any pecuniary interest, direct or indirect, as required by and in accordance with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act.
Thank you, and if you could please sign on the right. Thank you, Trustee Oldfield. If you could please take your seat. It's now a pleasure to invite Shailene Panelo down here as well with me. Thank you.
I, Shailene Panelo, do solemnly declare that I am not disqualified under any act from being a member of Durham District School Board. I will truly, faithfully, impartially, and to the best of my ability execute the office of board member, and that I have not received and will not receive any payment or reward or promise thereof for the exercise of any partiality or malversation or other undue execution of the said office, and that I will disclose any pecuniary interest, direct or indirect, as required by and in accordance with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act, declared before me at the town of Whitby in the province of Ontario this 15th day of November, 2022.
Congratulations, and if you wouldn't mind signing as well. And Trustee Panelo, if you could please take your seat now. Thank you. Next, I would invite Linda Stone to please join me to recite the oath.
Linda Stone, do solemnly declare that I am not disqualified under any act from being a member of Durham District School Board. I will truly, faithfully, impartially, and to the best of my ability execute the office of board member, and that I have not received and will not receive any payment or reward or promise thereof for the exercise of any partiality or malversation or other undue execution of the said office, and that I will disclose any pecuniary interest, direct or indirect, as required by and in accordance with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act.
Thank you, and if you could please sign. And Trustee Stone, you can then take your seat. Thank you. And finally, I would invite Christine Thatcher to join me, please.
I, Christine Thatcher, do solemnly declare that I am not disqualified under any act from being a member of Durham District School Board. I will truly, faithfully, impartially, and to the best of my ability execute the office of board member, and that I have not received and will not receive any payment or reward or promise thereof for the exercise of any partiality or malversation or other undue execution of the said office, and I will disclose any pecuniary interest, direct or indirect, as required by and in accordance with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act.
Thank you, and if you could please now sign. Thank you. Trustee Thatcher, you may now take a seat around the board table.
Thank you.
Thank you. So it is a pleasure to introduce the declared board for 2022-2026, and want to invite family and friends who have so graciously joined us for this celebratory inaugural board meeting to give the whole board one last round of applause, please. We are now at item 6 on the agenda, which is the approval of the agenda. Are there any revisions or suggestions to change the draft agenda as distributed? Trustee Panel?
Thank you. I would like to make the amendment of the agenda to add in a consideration of a motion for the use of masking in Durham District School Board classrooms. If I could.
Thank you. So just so that there's clarity, I'm hearing that under other business, item 17, you would like consideration of an agenda item that is masking, and I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear the last part of that.
Sure. The reinstatement of masking within Durham District School Board schools.
Reinstatement of masking within the Durham District School Board.
Yes.
So there is a proposal to amend the agenda. I would need a seconder for that amendment, please. Trustee Cunningham, are you seconding that amendment? Thank you. So there is a proposed amendment to the agenda. I would now then have to ask if there's any discussion in terms of proposing that amendment, or whether or not I can go immediately to calling the question and a revised agenda be contemplated by vote. It's a 50% plus one to revise the agenda for the item to get on the agenda. Sorry, I think your mic is still on. Thank you. There we go. Just wanted to make sure it was clear. Okay, there we go. So I'm not seeing any speakers list, so I would now call the question. Those in favor of approving the agenda with the one revision of the consideration of reinstating a masking mandate within Durham District School Board, could I please see a show of hands in terms of approving that agenda as revised? I see 7 in favor, so that adjustment to the agenda does stand, and we have added that item in as item 617A. Thank you. That now takes us to the first election of the evening. The election of the chair is conducted under Board Bylaw 3.3.1. I, as Chief Executive Officer, Secretary of the Board, shall conduct that election, and the elected chair will conduct the remainder of the elections for the duration of the evening. When 2 or more trustees are nominated and agree to stand, each shall be given an opportunity to speak to their candidacy, and then voting shall begin by the use of confidential polling system. I've asked Executive Lead Sir Janik and student trustees to serve alongside me as arbiters in terms of looking at the polled votes. I'll go forward once the votes are confirmed with the declaration of the chair. It is now my pleasure to open nominations for the position of chair of the board. Please note that self-nominations are welcome along with nominations of others. Trustee Morton?
I will self-nominate for the position of chair.
Thank you, Trustee Morton. Trustee Thatcher?
I will self-nominate for the position of chair of the board.
Thank you, Trustee Thatcher. Trustee Edwards?
I will self-nominate for the position of chair.
Thank you, Trustee Edwards. Are there any other nominations for chair? Are there any other nominations for chair? I will ask a third and final time if there are any other nominations or self-nominations for chair. Seeing none, the nomination process is closed. I will now give an opportunity for those who have self-nominated to speak to their candidacy, and we will go in alphabetical order, starting with Trustee Edwards, please.
Thank you. In deciding to run for chair of the board, I went back to review some of the Ministry of Education governance resources, like the Ontario Education Services Corporation's trustee professional development modules. We all know and understand the governance duties of the chair, as stated in these resources, of presiding over board meetings, establishing the board's agenda in consultation with the director, acting as a spokesperson for the board, unless otherwise determined by this board, providing leadership to the board while maintaining a focus on the strategic plan, mission, and values, and understanding that the chair may not unilaterally and act unilaterally and is an individual trustee with no greater rights or powers than any other trustee on the board. There's more to the role of chair, though. A chair uses governance tools, leaderships, and team building skills so that the board of trustees can work together as a team to collaboratively make decisions that support all students, complete the work required while sharing the responsibility, place the good of all students and the school system before individual political agendas, and be open-minded to all views of fellow trustees, while focusing equally on assessing the value of projects and initiatives, as well as controlling costs as we make decisions with student achievement and well-being at the forefront. The board as a whole must take responsibility to resolve any dysfunctional situations that may arise and strive to build team dynamics that demonstrate commitment to our mission of Ignite Learning, our mission statement of Ignite Learning, and the new strategic plan. On the topic of establishing a common ground and relationships, the guide recommends all trustees do a self-assessment. So upon reflection of the 12 years I've served as a trustee, I have reflected on my skills and my abilities with respect to the role of chair. I have demonstrated my ability in governance and chairing meetings through the many positions I've held during my tenure as trustee, such as chair of finance, vice chair standing, vice chair, chair of audit, strategic planning committee, just to name a few. For us as a board to have meaningful discussions and make informed decisions, the chair must also ensure that trustees have relevant information. And most people, those people that know me, though my color is blue, and I'm not talking about my political affiliation. I actually fit in the swing vote. I thrive on the need to have information and data. Working with the director, I will ensure that trustees get the information needed to make an informed decision. I will share with you in a timely way and relevant information that comes through the chair's office on emerging issues that affect schools, staff, and our communities. I acknowledge that I'm not an expert on anything. In fact, I'm actually uncomfortable when people identify me as an expert in special education. I will say that I have adroitness or skills, experience in special areas like special education that comes from being a parent of children with disabilities and sitting on SEAC for over 20 years. I acknowledge every trustee around the board table has valued skills, knowledge, work experience, and lived experience. For that reason, I promise to work and collaborate with all of you, particularly around the role as a spokesperson. I will endeavor to ensure meetings are run effectively and that all voices are heard. When handling any business of the board and the role of a spokesperson, it will be done professionally, respectfully, and with impartiality. Just to give you some of my life and work experience includes that growing up in a single-parent family home and living in poverty, standing up and advocating for a sibling of a very low-incident disability during what was a very, very different time, working in public and private sectors with increased level of responsibility, coaching a team of athletes with intellectual disabilities at a national level, and being, as I said, a parent and advocating of 2 children with 2 very different disabilities and varying needs. My experiences have helped develop my leadership skills for this position. It has also helped me be a good listener, compassionate, and empathetic. The next year will continue to present challenges like addressing the continued impact of COVID-19 and the emergent variants, funding pressures, labor negotiations, just to name a few. I would be pleased to serve as your chair as we collaboratively work together in developing a new strategic plan through processes that will actively engage and attend to diverse voices and difficult truths of our community. No matter who we select as chair, I hope as a board, we will continue to embed the principles of the United Nations Declaration of the Rights to Indigenous People, the new Indigenous Education Policy, the Charter of Human Rights, and the Ontario Human Rights Code when making decisions to ensure students' success and achievement and the well-being of all our students and staff. Thank you.
My sincere thanks, Trustee Edwards. I would ask now Trustee Morton if she could please speak to her candidacy.
Good evening, everyone. Firstly, I want to say welcome to our new trustees. I also want to say thank you for coming forward to represent your school communities. It has been an honor and a privilege to serve as the chair of the Durham District School Board for the last 2 years. I have learned much, I've gained many insights, and I realize that I still have much to learn. We can consider this time to be an opportunity to use our varying skill sets and knowledge bases to create safe, welcoming learning environments for our students and our staff, where all feel valued. It is through this spirit of cooperation, collaboration, and giving voice to all that our students and staff achieve their goals and confidently move forward. We've all faced challenges in the last few years, whether you are a student, whether you are a parent, a staff member, a bus driver, the director, or a trustee. We have all faced unprecedented times and encountered many hurdles. We have worked together, and we will continue to do so as we move forward. Representing the North, the rural part of Durham, I am comfortable using terms applicable to agriculture. Hence, I would suggest that we cultivate to create the best learning and growing opportunities. We plant seeds for a safe, caring, inclusive environment where students thrive, and we fertilize to maximize the work that we do. So if you support me in this endeavor, and I sincerely hope that you do, it will again be all hands on deck as we work cooperatively and collaboratively to carry out the critical work of the Durham District School Board. Together, we will ignite learning. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Morton. I'll now turn to Trustee Thatcher, please.
Thank you, Director Marsh, and welcome to everyone tonight. A clear understanding of the role and responsibilities as chair is fundamental to good governance, particularly for us in the year ahead. This is clearly laid out in the Education Act and the Durham District School Board Consolidated Bylaws. Basically, the chair has no greater rights or powers than any other member of the board. The position, however, goes beyond chairing of meetings in a fair and impartial manner and includes ensuring that board members have all necessary documentation in order to make informed decisions. The first year of the 22 to 26 term, the year ahead, I anticipate will be one of the most challenging for trustees in general, and especially for the Durham District School Board, with 8 of 11 new trustees and a new Director of Education. We have often said that with the changing demographics in the district, we must all recognize the diversity among our learners and school communities and continue to respond in a number of ways. Firstly, through our hiring practices, the hiring of highly qualified and diverse staff, through differentiated programming, and not to mention the implementation and ongoing evaluation of our policies and procedures. Equity, diversity, and inclusion must be a common thread in all that we do. This is foundational. This newly elected board is the most diverse board of trustees ever elected in Durham. As much as we feel that we have served our community well in the past, this provides the potential to serve our community even better going forward. As a spokesperson to the public on behalf of the board, the chair has the opportunity to keep parents and stakeholders informed of the work that we do as a board and on their behalf. Community members asked often during the last election about the role of trustees. I believe that our community is totally important to us, and I'm a strong advocate that we consult with our parents on all important matters. This is the critical moment in public education. Integrity, transparency, and open communication in determining priorities and planning reflecting the expectations of stakeholders in addressing the concerning issues that we face. Some of those key issues would be addressing the learning gaps, busing issues, staffing shortages, violence in our schools. All of these will require strong, focused leadership. So another area of responsibility of the chair is to keep us focused on our multi-year strategic plan and our objectives. Trustees must continue to advocate for changes to the funding model, particularly in support of our students with learning differences, and the tremendous need for new schools in the district to alleviate the enrollment pressures. The approval of funding for new schools and overcrowding of our schools, both elementary and secondary, were very prominent issues in the recent election. An issue not only for the Board of Trustees and their stakeholders, but also top of the list for our local councillors and regional councillors as well. Our collective voice is strong. At the heart of our collective work are our students, their safety, well-being, and success. I'm very proud of the accomplishments of the last 4 years. It is the shared responsibility of the director and the elected board to improve student achievement and well-being. I have every confidence that we will build on that work over the next 4 years. Remember, the chair serves at the will of the board. Together, we can make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Thatcher. And I thank all 3 trustees for your willingness to stand as a candidate for chair of the board. So we will go into the polling process. Because there are 3 individuals running, just a reminder that if we don't get a clear majority the first time, we would drop 1 candidate off and then move to election of 2. For anyone who needs a reminder, the polling system, there's a tab at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and you're able to vote there. Thank you.
Trustees, so we would need a revote. There's a tie situation here. So we'll have to run that poll again. And it'll just take a second as the team recalibrates the vote. Polling is now open again. Trustees, you may vote.
General Counsel Cotter, I would appreciate your advice in terms of how we turn this into a vote for 2.
So we have a tie for second place amongst the second and third positions. So what our bylaws provide, section 3.4.6 provide as follows: in the event of an equality of votes, there shall be another ballot. And should there be another equality of votes, the candidates shall draw lots to fill the position. That contemplates a tie in the first position. So in this case where we have a tie for second and third, my recommendation to the board would be that the second and third candidates draw lots rather than having all 3 draw lots, but that's an issue of interpretation for this board. Could have all 3 draw lots and pick the winner that way, or we could have the second and third draw lots. In terms of dropping off, we'd have to find a way to do that in a way that preserved the confidentiality of the vote, but I think we could navigate that. But my recommendation is that 2 and 3 draw lots but it is open to interpretation of the board. It could be all three would draw lots to pick the winner. No, you can only vote.
So there is a recommendation that we draw lots between the tie to determine who's in second place, and then there would be another vote between the first and then whoever draws the lot into second place. Is there any objection to that proposed way forward? So I'm not seeing any objection. Thank you. General Counsel Cotter, I will leave it to you and Executive Lead Surjanic in terms of the drawing of lots. Thank you.
So I have two straws here. Whoever draws the short straw will be out.
General Counsel Cotter, should we ask the three candidates perhaps to join you in the other room to draw those lots?
It's a good idea. We
Thank you.
preserve the confidentiality of who's in what position. Thank you.
Thank you. So if all three chair candidates could please join with Executive Lead Surjanic and General Counsel Cotter in the adjoining room, the lots will be drawn there. Thank you.
So we've completed the drawing of the lots, and Trustee Morton will be dropped from the ballot, and we will re-vote as between Trustee Thatcher and Trustee Edwards.
And just 1 second, trustees, the vote needs to be recalibrated with one trustee dropped off.
The new poll is ready.
Director Marsh, I will message you the successful.
Thank you.
Unless, yeah. Oh, I guess I can text.
That's okay. I think that the poll is complete, and very honored and to congratulate and welcome Trustee Edwards to Chair of the Board. And we'll take a short break so that we can get Trustee Edwards in position in terms of Chair of the Board. Thank you.
Thank you for your patience. We had some technical difficulties in the boardroom and we lost live stream for a short period of time. I also would like to thank the rest of the Board of Trustees for your vote of confidence for being the chair of the board. I look forward to working collaboratively with you and in service for you. Thank you. We will move on to the elections of the vice chair of the board. So I will now open nominations for the vice chair of the Board of Trustees. Come on. Trustee Morton.
Chair Edwards, I would put my name forward for vice chair of the board.
Trustee Peniel. No, wrong one. Trustee Stone, sorry.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. I'd like to nominate Trustee Thatcher.
Trustee Peniel.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to self-nominate.
Thank you. Seeing no other nominations? Are there any further nominations? Must call 3 times. Are there any further nominations? I will declare the nominations closed. We will start with candidates. Will have the opportunity to speak to their nominations, and we will go from alphabetical order. So we will start with Trustee Morton.
Thank you. I don't think I need to speak a second time. I've said my piece. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Morton. Trustee Stone, Trustee Thatcher.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. I also have spoken already, so I'll let that stand. Thank you.
Thank you. And Trustee Peniel.
Thank you, Chair. I won't speak for too long, but for those of you who are new to me, my name is Shailene, she, her, and I'm very honored and humbled to be here today as a new trustee for Oshawa. We as a community and a region have navigated some very trying years, and I'm very thankful for the work done by the trustees before us. So I just want to take a moment and express my heartfelt gratitude to them for getting us through the last 4 years. But there is a lot of work that is yet to be done, and this is a really wonderful opportunity for those of us, including myself, who are new to this space, to learn from those who have returned. So I'm running for vice chair because I'd like to maximize this opportunity to learn from our new chair, who is a returning trustee, and support this work for the next year. My experience in DDSB, for those who aren't familiar with my story, was not an easy ride at all. And that is ultimately where most of my community work originated from. So I'm prioritizing equity, empowerment, and positive change, and have throughout the past couple of years, both as a previous DDSB student and as a community member and not-for-profit director here in the region. This means to me doing the right thing even when it's hard, doing so with integrity, by centering community, with care and with kindness. And I do want us to look around the room for a moment, because there is representation here that only a few years ago, I as a student would have thought impossible, and that is not something to take lightly. But because of that, we have to put this to use in a very non-performative way, with an unwavering intention to improve the lives of every student, staff, and community member within this board across our region. My motto is to be the role model that I could have used when I was younger, and hopefully my being here empowers other young leaders to take up space unapologetically, to lead with love, and to widen the path for others to come along. So, to my fellow trustees, thank you for your consideration in advance, and I look forward to serving alongside you all for the next 4 years. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Trustee Paniello. So we have 3 trustees that have put their name forward, Trustee Morton, Trustee Thatcher, and Trustee Paniello. We will move to the voting through our confidential polling system. So we don't have a majority winner at this point in time. So it will be another confidential vote. Thank you, Trustee Morton, as putting your name forward. The 2 remaining candidates are Trustee Thatcher and Trustee Paniello. We have a majority vote. Congratulations to Trustee Thatcher, Vice Chair of the Board. And thank you for all the candidates who put their name forward. Moving on to the election of the Vice Chair, Committee of the Whole, Committee of the Whole standing. Nominations, please. Motion, sorry, we didn't do, okay, sorry, where am I?
You're asking for nominations.
Yeah, so nominations for the Vice Chair standing, Committee of the Whole. Nominations for Vice Chair standing, Committee of the Whole. Trustee Stone.
I'd like to nominate Tracy.
Trustee Brown, do you accept the nomination? Okay. Trustee Brown has declined the nomination. Further nominations? Trustee Cunningham.
I hadn't planned on putting my name forward, but since no one else seems to want to do this role, I would be happy to step in and be the Vice Chair.
Okay, thank you. Any further nominations? Any further nominations? And that is the 3rd time, so there's no further nominations. We declare the nominations closed. And thank you, Trustee Cunningham, being claimed for the position of Vice Chair standing, Committee of the Whole. Moving on to the Chair of Education and Finance. Where am I? I'm trying to find my page where we are for nominations. Anyways, so any nominations for the Chair of Finance Committee? Trustee Thatcher.
Thank you. I'd like to nominate Trustee Arsenault.
Trustee Arsenault, do you willing to stand for position of Vice Chair, Chair of Finance? Sorry, I'm trying to get you up there.
At this time, I'd like to decline that.
Okay, so Trustee Arsenault is declining the nomination for Chair of Finance. Trustee Morton.
I will self-nominate for Chair of Finance.
And Trustee, did you have your, Trustee Miller?
Self-nomination, so can I?
Okay,
Yeah,
Trustee Miller.
Not for me, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
I would like to nominate Trustee Morton.
Okay, so we have Trustee Morton's name as nominated for Chair of Finance. Any further nominations? Any further nominations? That's the third time of asking for nominations. We'll declare the nominations closed. Congratulations, Trustee Morton, as Chair of Finance. Looking for nominations for the Vice Chair of Education Finance Committee. Nominations for Vice Chair of Education Finance Committee. Nominations of Chair, Vice Chair, Finance Committee. Trustee Stone.
I'll self-nominate, thank you.
Any further nominations? And the third time, any further nominations? As that was the third call for nominations, we declare the nominations closed. Again, congratulations, Trustee Stone, for Vice Chair of Finance. Next item is, next election is for the Chair of Governance and Policy Committee. Do I have nominations for the Chair of Trustee Thatcher?
Thank you. Chair Edwards, I would like to nominate Tracy Brown.
Trustee Brown, do you accept the nomination? Thank you, Trustee Brown. Moving on, any other nominations? Any other nominations for Chair of Governance, the Governance and Policy Committee? That's my third call for nominations. We declare the nominations closed. Thank you, Trustee Brown. Congratulations for the Chair of Governance and Policy Committee. Now we're calling for nominations for the Vice Chair of the Governance and Policy Committee. Trustee Paniello.
Pinello, if that helps. I'd like to self-nominate.
Thank you, Trustee Paniello. Any other nominations for the Vice Chair, Governance and Policy Committee? Any further nominations for the Vice Chair of Governance and Policy Committee? As that was my third time in calling for nominations, we declare the nominations closed. Congratulations, Trustee Paniello. Okay, moving on to the Ontario Public School Board Association representation. There'll be two separate voting polling on. First will be the trustee of the voting member for OPSPA, and then the second will be for the non-voting member of OPSPA. Just a reminder that the voting, both directors or positions, they do vote at a regular board meeting. The only difference between the voting member and the non-voting member is the voting member votes when the board of directors sit as labor council, as well as at the AGM, where voting is done by weighted ballot based on the size of the board. So we're opening up for the Ontario Public School Board Association for voting member of the Ontario Public School. Trustee Cunningham.
I would like to self-nominate.
And Trustee Morton.
I would like to nominate Chair Edwards for that position. Do you accept?
Yes, actually, I do accept that position. Do you have to take over the vice chair? You have to take over.
No, I think the vice chair can take over.
Vice chair? Trustee Thatcher? Can you take over as, because I've accepted the nomination of the voting member? Could you take over the...
You can stay there if you like, but we'll message the results of the polling to you, and I will move the speakers list.
We still need a third, I hadn't did the third call for nominations.
Right, okay, thanks.
I will ask a third time if there are any further nominations for the voting representative for OPSPA. Seeing none, I will declare the nominations closed.
They both stood for the same.
Candidates will be given the opportunity to speak to their nomination. And I will begin with Trustee Cunningham.
Thank you. So nice to meet you all. I'm Emma Cunningham. I believe that I would be a strong candidate to sit as a voting member of the Ontario Public School Boards Association. Although I am new to being a trustee, I am not new to sitting on councils. As first vice president and then president of a local political party's riding association, I sat on the party's provincial council for 4 years. Each of those years involved 4 council meetings, both in person and virtual. At council, we approved reports by the president, the provincial director, and the treasurer, and kept a close eye to make sure that everyone was informed of and aligned to provincial policies, both by learning how to communicate them back to the ridings or bringing forward motions from our local riding to the larger council. My riding collaborated closely with other ridings to jointly put forward motions that were prioritized in multiple regions. Although individual boards don't always share policies at OPSBA the way that they do for a political party, they do work together on larger scale items, such as collective bargaining. I have significant experience working with other local groups. As part of my job on the Riding Association, I also sat on the Centre East Council, on which we met monthly. We updated other ridings on things happening locally and collaborated to amplify and assist with other ridings' activities.
As part of the Pickering Uxbridge Association, we worked quite closely with other Durham ridings, frequently featuring joint activities. I'm very passionate about OPSBA's mission around diversity and valuing different voices. As a Jew, we are often unrepresented, if represented at all, on equity, diversity, and inclusion committees, and I would very much value the opportunity to bring forward an often unheard community's voice to the larger trustee community. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Cunningham. Now calling on Chair Edwards.
Thank you. I've sat on the Ontario Public School Board Associations as a chair, represented the chair of Central East Region. I've also sat on the Policy and Programs Committee for many years as well, providing information from the various boards of Central East as well as our own board to an input into policies and recommendations through the Ontario Public School Board Association. The amount of work that is done is significant and has a huge impact. We work collaboratively with other boards in order to provide input to various policies and priorities, projects that the Ministry of Education asks for inputs by the various trustee associations. It also then sits as the labor board, where negotiation information is provided to the board at the OPSBA, and we bring that information back to discuss with our boards and provide input back to the Ontario Public School Board Association that sits at the negotiation table. It has been a fulfilling amount of work at being at OPSBA, and I would like to continue to work as a director member at the table for at least another year, and more willing to work with new trustees to take over that particular role, to have an additional voice. I have provided a huge voice around that table for many years, including around equity and diversity, with my expertise, I shouldn't say expertise, with my knowledge around special education. So I much appreciate, would like to continue that work for this board for at least another year. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. We have 2 candidates for 2 positions. If there are no objections, then we'll first vote for the voting representative, and then the second candidate will be the non-voting representative. We will now vote by confidential polling system. I didn't understand your message. Congratulations, Trustee Cunningham. You'll be the voting representative for the Ontario Public School Board, and Chair Edwards will be the non-voting representative.
No. Yeah, just a clarification, that was just for the vote for the voting member. There is a second polling that has to happen for the actual other non-voting member of the OPSPA.
Sorry for the confusion. So we're now going to be voting for the non-voting trustee representative for the Ontario Public School Board. And I will accept nominations for that, for the position of the non-voting representative. Trustee Oldfield?
I would like to self-nominate.
Thank you. Trustee Edwards?
I would like to self-nominate.
Are there any further nominations? Are there any further nominations? I will ask a third time, and if there are no further nominations, we'll declare the nominations closed. Nominations are closed. The candidates will be given the opportunity to speak to the nomination, and I'll call on Chair Edwards first.
I think I've expressed my point. The only thing is that I would like the opportunity to actually provide my support and services to the voting member, Trustee Cunningham, at the OPSPA as far as that is concerned. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. And Trustee Oldfield.
Thank you. I've had various relationships with the public school system. I was an employee of the Toronto District School Board for over 15 years. I'm a labor and community organizer. I've been a parent, and I'm currently a grandparent of 3 grandchildren who attend DDSB schools. I have over 30 years of negotiation, arbitration, and mediation experience, and have a consensus-building leadership style. I understand the importance of ensuring people have equal consideration and the importance of working to build partnerships by looking for common ground, especially where there are vast differences. I feel that these skills would allow me to work with and build partnerships with other members of OPSPA in a meaningful and productive manner and contribute to furthering its mission, vision, and values. And I ask for your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Oldfield. We'll now vote for the position of non-voting trustee representative for OPSPA. Congratulations, Trustee Oldfield. You will be the non-voting trustee representative for OPSPA. We're now seeking 2 alternatives for the Ontario Public School Board. We're looking for nominations for the 2 alternates. Trustee Chair Edwards.
I'll self-nominate for an alternate.
Thank you. Are there any further nominations? Trustee Morton?
I would also self-nominate for an alternate position.
Thank you. Are there any further nominations? Seeing none, congratulations, Chair Edwards and Trustee Morton. Did I do something wrong?
No, I'm just taking this away from
Okay. I will.
Thank you. We'll be moving on to the Audit Committee. We require 3 trustees to sit on the Audit Committee. We are opening the floor for nominations for positions on the Audit Committee. Calling for nominations, we need 3 trustees for the position of the Audit Committee. Trustee Arsenault?
I would like to nominate myself for that.
Thank you, Trustee Arsenault. Any further nominations? We need 3 trustees for the Audit Committee. Trustee Miller.
I would like to nominate Trustee Pinello.
Trustee Pinello, would you like to be a position on the Audit Committee? Okay, Trustee Pinello has indicated a yes. Any further nominations? We need a 3rd trustee for sitting on the Audit Committee. Trustee Pinello?
I'd like to nominate Trustee Miller.
Trustee Miller, are you willing to sit on the Audit Committee, your nomination for the Audit Committee?
Thank you for the nomination, but at this time I'd like to decline.
Okay, Trustee Miller declines. We're still looking for a 3rd trustee to sit on the Audit Committee. We need 1 more trustee to sit on the Audit Committee. Trustee Morton.
I would nominate Trustee Linton.
Trustee Linton, will you accept the nomination?
I will accept the nomination.
Thank you, Trustee Linton. Are there any further nominations? I'm sure I've asked that for more than 3 times for nominations. We'll declare the nominations closed. Thank you, Trustee Arsenault, Pinello, and Linton for acclamation on to the Audit Committee. Moving on to the Special Education Advisory Committee, we need 2 trustees to sit on the Special Education Advisory Committee. I am calling nominations for the positions of the Special Education Advisory Committee. Trustee Oldfield?
I would like to self-nominate.
Okay. Trustee Miller?
I would like to self-nominate.
Any further nominations? Any further nominations for the Special Education Advisory Committee? As that is the 3rd time I've called for the trustee nominations for that, we declare the nominations closed. Thank you for Trustee Miller and Trustee Oldfield for positions on being acclaimed on the position of the Special Education Advisory Committee. We need 2 alternates to sit on the Special Education Advisory Committee. I'm opening nominations for alternates for the Special Education Advisory Committee. Two alternates. Trustee Cunningham?
I would like to nominate Chair Edwards.
I'll accept the position of an alternate, yes. Sorry.
Are there any further nominations for the position of alternate trustee for SEAC? Looking for one more alternate for SEAC. Trustee Stone?
I'll self-nominate, thank you.
Are there any further nominations? Are there any further nominations? I will ask a third time, and if there are no further nominations, we'll declare the nominations closed. Congratulations, Chair Edwards and Trustee Stone.
Okay, moving on to the supervised alternate learning SAL. We need 2 trustees to sit on SAL. Again, recognizing that those meetings happen usually during the day, I think twice a month, if I'm not mistaken. We need 2 trustees. Trustee Paniello?
I'd like to nominate Trustee Linton.
Trustee Linton. Do you accept the nomination?
Unfortunately, I have to decline.
Okay, Trustee Linton declines. Trustee Morton?
I will self-nominate for the SAL committee.
Thank you, Trustee Morton. Any other trustees? And we need 2 trustees for the Supervised Alternate Learning Program. Sal? Trustee Oldfield?
I'll self-nominate.
Any further nominations for the position of SAL, trustees on SAL? Any further nominations? Is that the third time? I will declare the nominations closed. Thank you, Trustee Morton and Trustee Oldfield, for
First meeting is next month.
all right. Acclamation in the positions on SAL. We now need 2 alternates for the supervised alternate, the SAL program. Trustee Linton?
I'd like to self-nominate.
Okay. Any further nominations? Trustee Linton, you put your mic back
did I
on?
really?
Okay, you're fine. Trustee Arsenault?
I'd like to self-nominate.
Thank you, Trustee Arsenault. Any further nominations for alternates for SAL? Any further nominations for alternates for SAL? As that is the third time, there will be no further nominations. I declare the nomination closed. Thank you, and your acclaim, Trustee Linton and Trustee Arsenault for alternates for SAL. Got everybody now? Yes. Parent Involvement Committee. We have one trustee for the Parent Involvement Committee, the PIC Committee. We have nominations for PIC Committee. Trustee Thatcher.
I'd like to nominate Trustee Arsenault.
Trustee Arsenault, are you willing to sit on as accept your nomination for the Parent Involvement Committee?
I accept.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Arsenault. Trustee Cunningham.
I'd like to nominate Trustee Linton.
Trustee Linton, would you accept the nomination for the Parent Involvement Committee?
I will accept.
Okay. Any further nominations for the position for the PIC Committee? Any further nominations for the position on the PIC Committee? Seeing no more nominations, I declare the nominations closed. There's one position available, this position will be going for a vote by confidential polling system. Oh, I'm sorry, you're right. I forgot that the opportunity to speak. I apologize. Trustee, beginning with Trustee Arsenault, I apologize. Trustee Arsenault, would you like to speak as far as being on the position of the Parent Involvement Committee?
Hello, I am Michelle Arsenault. I'm interested in being in the Parent Involvement Committee. I have 4 children who were in the school board as well as myself. I'm interested in bridging the communication for parents so that they can support their children and working with them and as well as the community.
Thank you, Trustee Arsenault. Trustee Linton.
Thank you, and it's an honor and pleasure to put my name forward for the chair of the Parent Involvement Committee. As those before me, I'd like to thank the trustees who have taken us through the last 4 years, inclusive of those in the room and those who have occupied these various seats. As a community development practitioner of over 14 years, I understand the importance of the community and the parent voice. We are in a great time of transition that is epitomized by the makeup of the board and representation of the newly sworn in and re-elected trustees. But this is a time of transition, which also highlights the very reason many of us ran for these positions. We want to be the change that our community wants and needs to see. Given this, the voice of parents is as important as ever as we seek much needed input on important and somewhat controversial challenges, noting that there's no right or wrong answer. What is important is knowing and understanding that the answer lies in the voice of those who elected us, our families and our friends who stand by us, and those around this table who stand with us. As chair of this committee, my objective is to increase, diversify, and amplify the parent voice, of which this committee is a critical piece. Regardless of the outcome, I am committed to supporting this committee, as not only do I believe in its capability, but know how necessary it is to be the collective voice that supports and guides us to bring our students to the greatness that they strive for and deserve. Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you to my colleagues, student trustees, the director, and of course, the Durham community for this opportunity.
Thank you, Trustee Linton, and again, I apologize for not giving you the opportunity originally to speak, and I thank you, Trustee Paniello, for bringing that to and Trustee Oliphant for bringing that to my attention. So we have two trustees willing to sit on the Parent Involvement Committee. There is, your poll should be up on your screens. And we have a majority. Congratulations to Trustee Linton as having a position on the Parent Involvement Committee. Now we're looking at one alternate for the Parent Involvement Committee. So we're opening up the floor for nominations for the alternate for the Parent Involvement Committee. Trustee Miller.
I would like to nominate Trustee Arsenault.
Trustee Arsenault, are you willing to stand the nomination?
Yes, I will.
Thank you, Trustee Arsenault. Any other nominations for alternate for the Parent Involved Committee? Any other nominations? Any nominations? As that is the third call for nominations, I declare the nomination closed, and congratulations, Trustee Arsenault, for claiming the position of the alternate for the Parent Involvement Committee. I believe that is the end of the elections. Congratulations, and thank you to all the trustees that have stepped up to the various committees. And I would like to note that in your package, there is also basically your the draft board meeting committee meeting dates, as well as some of the meeting dates for SAL and SEAC governance policy committee meetings at this point that have been set at this point in time. There's a ringing somewhere. Sorry. No problem. We don't have to approve. No, okay. Moving on then to the recommended actions. It's a motion that's put forward to cancel the December 19th board meeting. At this point in time, Trustee Carolyn Morton.
Thank you, and through you, Chair Edwards, I put forward the motion that we have only the standing committee meeting on December the 5th, and that we would cancel the board meeting of December the 19th. I don't see a need for having that board meeting the week before Christmas.
The motion is on the floor to cancel the December 19th board meeting. I need a seconder for that motion. Trustee Thatcher?
I'd like to second the motion.
Thank you, Trustee Thatcher. Comments on the motion to cancel the December 19th, comments, discussions on the December 19th cancellation of that meeting? Yeah. Yes. Director Marsh.
Thank you. Just in the interest, understanding that there are many new trustees around the table. Typically, this second board meeting is one that, from a staff perspective, we plan reports with recommendations to come forward in November and January. This December 19th one, because December tends to be a very busy month with a number of school events occurring. We tend to focus more on evening commitments out in the communities in terms of special events. So that's the history of it typically being canceled, and thought that context might be useful prior to the question being called. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Marsh. Any comments, questions on the motion to cancel the board meeting of December 19th? Seeing none, I call the question. All those in favor to cancel the December 19th meeting? As I see a majority of the votes, that motion has passed. Now we're moving on to the other business, and item is item 17 under other business is the reinstatement of masking, a motion that is being brought forward by Trustee Peniello. Trustee Peniello, would you like to speak, please, and bring forward that motion?
Sure. Just a quick question, Chair. Do I give discussion before reading the motion, or do I read the motion first?
You read the motion first, and we need a seconder, and then you have the ability to speak as first as bringing the motion forward.
Okay.
And you also have the ability to speak last on the motion.
Thank you. Okay, so the motion reads, whereas the CMOH of Ontario announced on November 14th, 2022, that children across Ontario are being hospitalized at alarming rates for COVID, RSV, and the flu, that the Hospital for Sick Children, along with CHEO and McMaster Children's Hospitals, are all reporting ICU admissions for children over 150% of their capacity, that elective surgeries at these major hospitals have already begun to be canceled due to that crisis, that parents and guardians of DDSB schools have been sharing with me school absences for children due to the aforementioned illnesses have been increasing to sometimes half of their classroom populations in Durham, that there remains a shortage of children's medications and antibiotics across the province and country, that the province is strongly recommending masks to help protect kids from preventable illnesses and potential hospitalization and/or death, and that the County of Essex has already reinstated a mask mandate for their community. Therefore, I move that the DDSB formally request that the Durham Region Health Department act proactively to protect children in our schools and give us the directive to reinstate masking requirements so that we can help mitigate the risk and illness during this crisis and shortage, and reevaluate this measure when the children's hospitals and medical professionals' concerns have been mitigated and reduced. I would like to include provisions of consideration to ensure that this measure is equitable for students with documented medical conditions, special needs, disabilities, and that high-quality masks remain widely available for students, staff, and visitors to address economic barriers to safety. So that is the very long motion.
Thank you, Trustee Paniello. We need a seconder on that motion before we have. Okay, we have Trustee Cunningham, that is the second. I would like to ask our legal counsel, Patrick Cotter, to give some direction on the motion that is provided at this point in time. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Edwards, and through you. In my opinion, the motion seeks is an invitation for the local medical officer of health to provide direction to the board. I don't view that as a new board policy, so I don't think we have to be concerned with the notice provisions, given the way the motion is framed. I think the motion is properly before the board.
So I think potentially, given that it's such a long, given that the motion is new for trustees to consider, what I would ask, I think that is being sent to Executive Lead Sir Janik. We'll put it up on the screen so we can just all be confident in terms of the wording of the motion. I think there may be some questions in terms of some of that wording, so it might be relevant to have it up on the screen. Thank you. Sorry, do you mind sending it over? Thank you.
Yes, Trustee Thatcher.
Yes, it was a very long motion, yes, yeah, for sure. I just wondered if basically we're asking the board for approval to send a letter to our Durham Region Chief Medical Officer for support in putting forward a mandate for masking. Is that his support for mandating masking? Am I understanding that correctly? I want to be sure that I'm voting for something that I clearly understand.
Thank you. If you would like to provide some clarification, Trustee Paniello.
Thank you, Trustee Thatcher. That's a great question. Yes, the TLDR, too long didn't read version, is it is a request to the Chief Medical Officer of Health of Durham to give the DDSB that recommendation and directive specifically for our school board within the region. And that is coming from the CMOH of Ontario, saying that it's up to the health units to direct that, as opposed to the school board itself making that mandate.
Could we please make the motion larger? And if we could potentially move it up on the screen as well, please. Thank you.
So I think the key words as I read the motion there is that it's a request to give us a directive.
Yeah. So it is a request for a directive for masking, as opposed to in the past where we've asked for advice for around masking. That's what I see as the difference, Trustee Piniella. Okay, thank you. So opening the floor, we have a motion on the floor, and we questions, comments on the motion on the floor. Trustee Morton.
Thank you, and through you, Chair Edwards. I cannot support this motion as it stands now because student well-being is extremely important to me. I like the fact that we can recommend masking, but I'm not comfortable with mandating masking. I could share with you many, many emails that I have received from our constituents. They feel very strongly. I also feel very strongly that we are not able to mandate masking.
Thank you, Trustee Morton. I have student trustee. So it's student trustee Ben Cameron.
Thank you, Chair. So I think it's important for us to be able to act on this because currently we do not have this ability. Because in the interest of protecting the most vulnerable, our students, and keeping hospitals open and allowing everyone to access the medical services they need, I think that this is the right thing to do. Although I would say that students do not. I believe that we have an obligation to protect our students. Because I do not think that students like this. But as a board, we should be working to protect our students. Because not only should we take into consideration their mental health, but also their physical health of what if someone has a medical situation and they can't access the hospitals that they need. And that should be really important part of what we consider in this motion. As well, I think another thing is that why I'm torn on this sometimes is that when we had the mandate in from, I'm not sure, last year, there was a negative backlash to it that I saw of we were forced to wear it, and then as soon as we weren't forced to wear it, it stuck around for a little bit, but then once students dropped it, they all dropped it and they don't want to go back. Which is why I'm torn. But ultimately I would support this because it's in the interest of protecting students' health. Thank you.
Thank you, student trustee Cameron. Moving on to student trustee Kite, I believe is, if I'm present.
It's Hewitt, but that's okay.
Hewitt, that's right. Thank you.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. Trustee Piniella, we agree that wearing a mask is ideal and that it keeps our staff and students safe so that schools can ultimately operate as intended and so that we can reduce the extreme amount of hospitalizations going on outside of schools. Like student trustee Cameron said, not all students are in favor of wearing masks, but the general body of the Durham District School Board has recognized the importance of them through experience in recent years. Like lots of students within Durham District School Board have had COVID once or twice or some sort of very serious medical situation within the past few years. So we recognize the importance in wearing a mask, of course. So ultimately, as student trustees representing the student body of Durham, we say that we're in agreement with encouraging the safest route available while maintaining educated decision-making. So that means we're teaching students to utilize their independence in making a choice that's appropriate and safe for them as individuals, with hope that they consider the greater good of their peers as well. And if this means making a request of direction, then we stand with your motion. Thank you.
Thank you, student trustee Hewitt. Moving on to trustee Cunningham.
Thank you, Chair, and recognizing the irony of taking off my mask to speak in support of a mask mandate. So as the parent of 2 children, I fully support mask mandates. Although my children are back in person this year, they were students at DDSB at home for the past 2 years, one completing grades 4 and 5, and my son the entirety of kindergarten at a computer. We enrolled them virtually due to the lack of many protective measures in place in Ontario, including ventilation. There is very little we can do at the board level when it comes to ventilation, but there is a very simple and well-proven step that we can take to reduce the transmission of COVID, the flu, and RSV simultaneously, and that is masking. CTV just reported that 71.4% of Ontarians would support the return of mask mandates to some extent. However, many of these parents do not send their kids to school in masks because of the risks of othering their child. No one wants their child to be known as the one in the mask, rather than being recognized for their academic and social strengths. And I know this because when we sent our kids back in person this year to a new school, we allowed them to attend without masks in order to build new relationships. We have, of course, received many communications from parents around potential masking mandate, both positive and negative. Today, for example, a Pickering mother told me that her kids have each missed over 7 days of school since September. She is an immunocompromised individual who works with the medically vulnerable. Each time her children are sick, it impacts not only her health and family life, but also her clients. While her children are wearing masks, each only has 1 or 2 others in their class wearing them. In classes of 20 to 30 students with no HEPA filters or air quality monitoring every day her children are in class is a risk for her family. And the same is true for my children. They are one of only 2 children in both their classes currently wearing masks, despite the strong recommendation to do so. Of course, I will note that I've also heard from parents who are not in favor of a masking mandate, including one who believes that high school students in particular should have the autonomy to make those decisions for themselves. However, with the high numbers of children now in hospitals and an official strong recommendation to mask by Dr. Moore, in my opinion, everything has changed. It's now essential that we safeguard the vulnerable members of our community, and with such a simple solution, it seems like an obvious one. Of course, any child who cannot mask for medical reasons would need to be accommodated, but I know that goes without saying. Just today, it was reported that the number of children in hospitals requiring resuscitation is increasing. We cannot let that get worse if it's within our power to stop it, and it is. We must take this step to protect the students that we have sworn to protect. When we speak of mental health and student mental health, I would like to note that mental health can be challenging, particularly when school is moved online. And if we don't instate a masking mandate, I'm concerned that that will be the next logical step to move school virtually, and that can be extremely challenging for students to make that transition to a virtual atmosphere. So I fully support the motion to ask Dr. Kyle if he would recommend a masking mandate from K to 12. And like everyone else, I'm sure I would support the removal of the mandate and a return to normal as soon as the situation eases enough to be safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Cunningham. Trustee Stone.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. I'd just like to start by saying that I knew about this motion about an hour before this meeting. Obviously, people knew about it well before. How come I only knew about this an hour before? This is not fair. I need more time to think about this. I don't think a motion should come forward, especially on an evening like this, where we've got so many new trustees. We need more time to think about it, and I'm going to motion that we postpone this decision till the next meeting.
So that's a motion to defer until,
yes, it is.
Till January board meeting of 2023. I need a seconder to for that motion, as it is takes precedence over the original motion. Trustee Thatcher?
I second the motion to postpone to the January board meeting.
Okay, we have a motion to defer that's first and second. Now we are a discussion of, as far as the motion to defer, the motion to ask Dr. Kyle for a masking mandate. Moving on to Trustee Paniello.
So I was going to speak to the original motion. Do I now have to speak to?
You have to speak to the motion to defer at this point in time.
Okay. I'll just speak. I think okay. I thank you to the trustees who spoke before. I do want to point out that this is not something I think we can push until January. Our province is in a crisis, and it is November the 15th. There are weeks left of school to go. And by the time we reach January's meeting, we may have already experienced the worst of this. ICU admissions are not going down. the number of resuscitations every day that are happening to children, and let me be very clear, resuscitation means that a child essentially has died and has been brought back. The number of families and parents who cannot access Advil, Tylenol, and antibiotics, broad-spectrum antibiotics, is widespread. I don't think anybody likes the idea of having to mask for longer than we want to. It's been a rough number of years, but I don't think we can sit here and sit on our hands and say the last couple weeks of school are just going to be a free-for-all for people, when we know statistically for the past 2 years at least, we have seen spikes around the holiday season with hospitalizations, with deaths, with spread. So I will be voting against deferring until January, just because I don't think it at all aligns with the urgency of what is happening in our communities.
Thank you. Student Trustee Hewitt.
Thank you, and through your chair, I'd like to say that this is a pressing matter. People will be better by January, but people are sick right now, and this means we need to deal with this right now. It's affecting education for students and for staff. As I agree with Trustee Cunningham that the importance this has, not only in affecting children so much, but also affecting our staff. Though it's less serious than resuscitation of children, I would still like to point out the importance of staffing issues that come with this almost pandemic part 2. Many teachers have children, which means that they are out sick, then not only infected by their children who have picked it up at public schools, but they're out then having to take care of those children. So then that's teachers that we're pulling out of the classrooms as well. I have a teacher last week that was out for 4 days because he was taking care of his children. That puts us as grade 12 high school students at such a disadvantage. And I ultimately don't think that's fair to staff or to students. So if the solution is so simple as to wearing a mask, then I don't see why we shouldn't ask for direction on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Student Trustee Hewitt. Trustee Morton.
Thank you, and through you, Chair Edwards. I'm not comfortable making a decision tonight. This is extremely important, and I think we all need to be extremely well informed before we can make a decision like this. So I would like to ask the staff if it's possible to prepare a report, confer with Dr. Kyle, and bring that report back to us next Monday at board meeting.
Okay, Trustee Morton, we can bring that up, but right now we're asking for a direction on as far as the comments on the motion to defer till January. I appreciate that. We can bring that back if as you could look at an amendment to the motion or something at that point in time. Okay.
An amendment to the amendment, because I appreciate that we need to defer, but maybe not until January. When I say defer, I just don't want to put forward that motion tonight. Just defer into the near future. I want to gather information first.
We don't have a scheduled meeting until January. That's why I said
no. We have a meeting next Monday.
Sorry, we have a next meeting Monday. So you're talking Monday.
Monday, the board meeting.
Sorry, yeah, Monday, the board meeting on
November the 21st.
November the 21st. So you're actually, the original motion was to January. So I'm just, at this point in time, so we have an amendment, and I'm thinking that the time frame, I don't know if does it alter the time frame significantly enough to not be able to be recognized as an amendment? I'm asking a little bit of direction.
So is the question, is it considered a friendly amendment versus a new motion?
No, an amendment to the date is, if it's, because there's an amendment to defer till January, and and Trustee Morton is asking to defer until the next board meeting, which is November the 21st. Is there a significant difference in time frame that we consider where we cannot consider it.
So
'cause I know
it's a motion to defer to a specific date, as opposed to just a motion to defer indefinitely. So I think changing the date is a significant amendment to the motion, so I would suggest it needs to be moved and seconded, and would then take precedence over the, if that motion then will have to be voted on and considered as a motion of precedence.
Okay, thank you.
You may want to clear.
Yes. So we have, but we need a seconder for the motion to defer to the basically amended date to November 21st. We need a seconder. You'll second it? Trustee Oldfield has seconded. Okay, so now we are discussing the motion to defer to discuss the motion to November, the board meeting of November 21st.
Chair Edwards, small point of clarification. You're only voting on the date.
Yes.
You're only voting on the date, not on the motion to defer. Is the amendment of the date?
The amendment of the date, that's correct.
That's it. So you're not accepting the deferral? It's just the motion on the date, changing the date of the motion. We'll then have to come back to the motion to defer and vote on that, just for clarification. I think that's what you said, but I just wanted to make sure that we're clear. We're only voting on changing the date. We'll then still have another vote on the main motion to defer.
That's my understanding, Councillor Cotter, and thank you for clarifying that. So it's really only a motion, basically a discussion on changing the date to November 21st. Trustee Thatcher.
Yes, I was hoping to speak to the motion to postpone, but I can certainly speak to the change of date. The only question I have, because there are many, many safeguards that we put in place over the course of the last couple of years, and I know that this would be better coming from staff who have, all of the complete information around those safeguards. We're not just depending on masks to protect our kids. There are many other things that we put into place. I'm just wondering if there would be enough time between now and the board meeting for that information to be pulled together.
Director Marsh.
Through you, Chair, we may not have it ready for the package that needs to be compiled on Thursday, but we could certainly have it ready under separate cover, I believe by Friday afternoon when it would go up on the website. I can't, though, speak, and there was a slight nuance in terms of, there was some conversation in terms of our report would include something in terms of communication with Dr. Kyle. I'm not sure I could speak as to whether or not that would be complete by the report time.
Okay, thank you. We have Student Trustee Cameron.
Thank you. I think this deferral, the amendment to the original motion to defer to Mondays is reasonable. Recognizing the urgency of this action, I think, it's trustees' first vote. I think it would be reasonable for them to know what they're voting on and talk to some people possibly. As well, I would just like some clarification. There's no motion for a report, right? That would just be supplemented by staff?
At this point in time, all we're discussing is the change of date to November 21st. If that is acceptable, then it's a motion to defer to November 21st. It's still with the motion would be that is being deferred is the motion, the original motion that was put forward was by Trustee Peniello. Thank you.
So there would need to be another motion for the staff.
Yeah, there would be, that's right, there would need to be a second motion for the staff report after that. So right now, is there any further discussion on just the change of date to November 21st? Seeing none, may I have a raise of hands to accept the change of date to November 21st for the, basically on the deferral? That motion has passed. So now we are into voting on the motion to defer to November 21st. First one was just changing the date. Now we're doing the motion to vote on to defer Trustee Pinilla's motion until the board meeting of November 21st.
And Chair Edwards, just to clarify, the motion is back on the floor. You did have a speakers list, I think, including Trustee Pinello, who wanted to close, I think, on that. So I think
Yes.
you're not finished debate. I just wanted to make that clear as
No,
well.
that I know.
I thought you know, but I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So that's what's now on the table, and so that's now what I'm going to have a speakers list to talk about. Okay, so first on the motion, Trustee Brown. Oops. I'll get you.
I just wanted some clarification. So thank you for the motion. Would this be rewritten in time for the next meeting? So I'm assuming that there's going to be some, this actual motion as presented will be rewritten to present as an official motion, or is this the motion?
What we're doing is just the motion to defer the Trustee Pinilla's motion. However, if we want a report, we have to have a second motion for the report to follow with Trustee Pinilla's motion. Director Marsh.
Sorry, just to clarify, in addition to what Chair Edwards has said, so I think the question is, this is the motion that you're voting on to defer to November 21st. If you're not happy with the wording of this motion, then that would be something that you would have to either address by defeating this motion and not deferring it, but defeating the original motion, or a friendly amendment. But as it stands, this is the motion that would move forward to November 21st if it is deferred. So that is a complicating factor in terms of not knowing what would land on November 21st if you defeat the motion that's on the floor right now.
If I could add one point, though, I think the motion would be deferred, but as with any motion, it would come back before the chamber, and it could be subject to a motion to amend at that point in time. So it's not a fait accompli that the motion has to be voted on in this fashion. It would come back. It could be amended at that time.
Thank you, Councillor Carler. So discussion on the motion to defer Trustee's Pinilla motion that is displayed on the screen. Trustee Morton.
As I mentioned earlier, I feel it's extremely important that we are well informed. So I would like to reiterate the need to have a staff report next Monday. Is now the time to address that?
I have to do the defer. Director Marsh.
Councillor Cotter?
Sure. There's two ways I think that this could be played. One, you could deal with the deferral motion, and this would be up to trustees. I don't think, Chair Edwards, you have anything to rule on yet. There's no point of order, but as a suggestion for trustees, this could be moved, you could vote on the deferral. If it's deferred, then you could then bring a motion for a report in time to have a report back before this motion is returned. So that would be one option. The other option would be to amend this motion now to couple a report with it. So I think those are the two options. I'll leave it. I don't think it's my place to comment on which is a better approach or which is simpler, but I think those are procedurally the two options you have.
Thank you, Councillor Cotter, and it's just just in order to make it very clear for trustees, I think it's probably easier to have a second motion for the report that comes with the discussion than it is to try to amend Trustee Pinilla's motion that's on the screen. I'm just looking at, just shaking heads if, at this point in time from trustees as far as agreement that that's probably the better way to go. Yes, Trustee Piniello, thank you very much. So, still on the floor, we have the motion to defer till November 21st. Trustee Stone.
Thank you. I was just going to call the vote.
Thank you, Trustee Stone. The question has been called. Can I have a show of hands for deferring Trustee Piniello's motion till the board meeting of November 21st? Motion has passed. Trustee Morton?
Now I'd like to put forward another motion asking staff to prepare a report and present that to us on November the 21st.
Can just a little bit detail as far as what that report is?
I want to know how that would impact our students, our staffing. I would like evidence that we are conferring with Dr. Kyle of Durham Health. I think we need to gather as much information as we possibly can.
And I think Director Marsh had made a comment that she might not be able to have that discussion with Dr. Kyle by Monday. So if you're putting together a report, can we just leave it as?
I would just say gather as much information as we possibly can in that short period of time.
Okay. Director Marsh?
Thank you. I want to be cautious because I'm not sure staff could speculate in terms of the potential impact on students and staff of a mandate. We could have some conversation, if it's, I think what the best thing for us to do is we can provide current attendance patterns both for students and staff so that people see what the pattern has been over time. We can provide a report in terms of the ventilation systems, and if there are other health and safety factors in consideration, certainly we'll work with the Health and Safety Department to include those elements. I wouldn't want to speculate though on potential impact because that would be hypothetical, and I don't think that's our place to. And certainly we could also reach out to Dr. Kyle and do our very best. In the past, he's been very responsive in terms of providing quick turnaround in terms of his direction to us. And so happy to pursue those avenues if that's to the trustee's satisfaction in terms of the motion.
I think if I could, through you, Chair Edwards, if I could add just to Director Marsh's comments, I think staff would be in a difficult position, though, to engage significantly with Dr. Kyle with that motion pending, because we may through those discussions preempt the motion. So that's a bit difficult in terms of those discussions. If there's a motion from the board to request a directive, and staff is going to engage in discussions this week with Dr. Kyle, we may preempt the motion. So I think I'm not suggesting we need anything formal on that, but I'm just suggesting that it may be appropriate that we don't engage in detailed discussions with Dr. Kyle. Just let him know that this is where we're at. Rather than sort of requesting his direction, because that may preempt the motion.
Okay, so the motion basically is, I'm just going to sort of summarize it, hopefully, because we haven't seconded it either at this point in time, but is to actually direct staff to provide a report on basically attendance trends, as well as ventilation reports and other data that it would be pertinent into as far as the impact of having masks, related to masks.
Sorry, we can't provide the element of the impact of wearing masks.
Yeah.
What we can do is provide a summary of all health and safety measures in place.
Thank you.
Thanks.
That's the words I wanted. Sorry, I didn't want to use impact, but that's the word that came. Thank you very much. So that motion, as far as it has been first, we haven't had a seconder for the motion at this point in time. We need a seconder for Trustee Oldfield as seconder. Now we are discussing the report from staff, student Trustee Cameron.
I have a question related to asking Dr. Kyle about a directive. Can we ask him for the directive without implementing it? So then we can say we're going to ask him for the permission, and then later, yes or no, are we going to implement it? Is that a thing that we could do?
Councillor Cotter, I'll have you reiterate what you said before, I believe.
Yeah, so I think, and thank you through you, Chair Edwards, so I think that's going to be a requirement. Depending on the nature of the directive, we'd have to see, assuming he granted the directive, we'd have to see exactly how he worded it. But if it comes more of as a directive that the board take action, then it would require a board resolution and a board policy to mandate masking. So it really depends how it's worded. If it comes as a directive from public health that school children mask, then there's nothing further required. So I think it really will depend on how he words any directive that he might provide. But I'm assuming it's going to be the former, if he does anything, which will be to direct us to act, which would require a further motion and mandatory masking policy to be adopted by the board, which could then incorporate some of those other pieces that were in the original motion in terms of the equity issues and those sorts of things. That would all be incorporated into a board policy.
Thank you, Councillor Cutter. So basically, we're ensuring that we don't preempt some of the items within the original motion at this point in time by asking Dr. Kyle. So we have the motion that is on the floor about asking staff a report on the data around attendance and health and safety and ventilation. Any other discussions on the motion on the floor? Seeing no other discussions. Trustee Pinot.
I just had a point of, I guess, a clarification question. I understand that this report will report back on ventilation, if there's been absences, so trends in attendance. I'm also trying to understand, to ensure that we don't get to next week and there are gaps, how this is going to be not necessarily interpreted, because I understand staff can't necessarily interpret data, how this is going to be applied then to decisions of the broader community when we're looking at pediatric hospitalizations. So and maybe it's an emphasis that when we are interpreting this data in this report next week, that we're also looking at the wider community trends. I don't think we can direct staff to gather that information, because that would likely have to come from Lakeridge Health, hence the ask to direct the question to Dr. Kyle. But I just want to, I guess, ask that clarification question, how we foresee this applying to the wider admissions and statistics within the community ahead of next week.
Director Marsh.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. The trustee is correct. We never take the position of speculating on public health matters, and so in our messages, we're always very cautious in terms of only repeating what the medical officials have said to us, and we do not create any of our own messaging related to public health matters. So we would not be interpreting trends in terms of the health system. We would only repeat what we have been told.
And the information that is being provided in the report would be from, the school board perspective of what's happening in our schools. And it'll be supplement the information that to your motion at this point in time. And then those further discussions around your motion will happen on November 21st. Is that okay? Okay, thank you. All right, so we have a motion on the table for the report created by staff. I have seen no other comments. Can I have a motion in favor of staff writing a report, providing the data around attendance and ventilation and health and safety, what's the word? Health and safety measures, that's it. That's the word I'm looking for. Thank you. Can I have a raise of hands and those in favor for the report? All in favor? That motion has passed. I believe that we have finished all the business of this meeting. As we concluded our business on the agenda, this meeting has been adjourned. Thank you.